Welcome back, fight fans. Welcome the fuck back. Let's just dig right into it. Is boxing ego bias? This is part two in a multi-part series that we're doing on the bias boxing. These series are requested by all of our subscribers, people on social media, and I'm overwhelmed with comments and requests to make these type of videos. So I'm going to be unbiased as possible and give the people what they want. That's what we do here at the Ibfp. If the people want the truth exposed, the truth will be exposed. And next up is going to be Dante's Bias Nation. But let's start with bias ego. And so when we first expose bias ego, we have to be honest with you and be completely straight and fair down the line. To do our research on bias ego, we had to go and look into what he talks about, who he is, and what's going on. And when you look at all this and you break it down and you look at it objectively, he's a PBC fanboy. That's what he is. And he tries to pretend to be neutral, tries to pretend that, it doesn't make a difference. He's for everybody. He just wants to see good fights. When in reality, he's a PBC fanboy. He's an extension of the LDBC without all the race baiting commentary, but race baiting undertones to everything he says. Look at it like this. You have bias ego who comes out and criticizes the zone, criticizes Eddie Hearn, criticizes Anthony Joshua, and when he comes out and criticizes these guys, the first thing he does is says, the zone is a failing app. They need these big fights. And when Demetrius Andre and Billy Joe Saunders fight fell through, it wasn't because of anything Demetrius Andre did, wasn't because of anything the zone or Eddie Hearn did. They did everything they were supposed to do. The other side and Billy Joe Saunders didn't do what he was supposed to do, but they made the fight. They wanted the fight. They put the money on the line for the fight. And then he comes out and says they can't afford to not have these big fights, so they haven't done anything. But then on the reverse end, when Tank Davis, who's been inactive for almost a year, who's fighting smaller guys moving up in weight, and what was being his come out party, his biggest fight to date, and a fight where we can try to gauge where this guy is. It's not even a real step up fight because he's fighting a smaller guy in Abdomades, and Abdomades pulls out. There's no criticism of the PBC. It's still a good fight, but that it doesn't get the same coverage as the zone. So that's his first bias statement. Many other bias statements that bias ego comes out with is fanboying for Deontay Wilder. He likes to brag and talk about this fake $50 million that was offered to Anthony Joshua, and clearly that was offered by Frank Warren and BT Sport, when we know that Anthony Joshua can never fight on BT Sport. You have to understand that bias ego is pushing a racially based narrative along with the PBC platform, and that's the only reason he's pushing that is to further his agenda of these fighters that he likes, that he fanboys for. Because you have to understand is that he was one of the guys pushing the Charlo brothers. He was one of the guys saying the Charlo brothers, everybody don't want to fight the Charlo brothers. It only makes sense for Triple G and Canelo don't want to fight Jamal Charlo. In reality, I've been telling you all along that Jamal Charlo was a fraud. Jamal Charlo was overhyped. Jamal Charlo is not proven. Jamal Charlo has not shown us anything. And yet this guy kept pushing. In the moment that Jamal Charlo was exposed, this guy never came out and said anything. Never came out and said anything. This guy ducked everyone that he hyped this guy up to, because you have to be honest and unbiased that Jamal Charlo was overhyped. He has not proven anything. And if we're honest and unbiased and objective looking at a particular fight with Jamal Charlo, Triple G, Canelo Alvarez, or even Danny Jacobs, we see Jamal Charlo getting stopped in each and every one of those fights. Then we turn our attention to Fury Wilder, and he turns around and says, this is the biggest fight in the heavyweight division. Clearly it's not, because it's not for undisputed. Clearly it's not, because neither one of these guys are the biggest draw in heavyweight boxing. That is Anthony Joshua. It seems like he always has Deontay Wilder going in and out of his mouth. He always has this happening with the PBC in and out of his mouth, always on his breath. But when it comes to Anthony Joshua, all you hear is hate and bias. He's pushing a narrative, and all these casual boxing fans who tune into his channel, who don't understand boxing, don't understand the situation, they think that Deontay Wilder is this great fighter when clearly he's the bum slayer. Clearly this is the situation that's going on. So we have to be unbiased and honest when we analyze this situation. We have to be unbiased and honest when we look at bias boxing ego. The guy's a fraud. The guy's pushing a narrative, and he's a fanboy of all PBC events. You notice the events that he likes to cover are PBC events. How many DAZN events has he covered? Canelo Alvarez was probably the biggest fight, at the end of 2018 that you could have, but he was focused on PBC events. He's focused on PBC events. He said, "Oh, Rocky Fielding, I'm not interested in that fight." But you're interested in fights that can score nowhere near that. Nowhere near that in Jamal and Jermell Charlo. You have to understand that Canelo Alvarez gets more views than either one of those guys, and he's on an app. So let's be honest and unbiased about the situation when we break it down. And then he'll turn around and give Canelo Alvarez credit just so he can try to diminish Anthony Joshua. Let's be honest. The zone has come a long way in a small amount of time. They have the two biggest stars in world boxing, Anthony Joshua and Canelo Alvarez. These guys have already signed Danny Jacobs. These guys have already signed Demetrius Andre. These guys are looking like they're signing, Triple G. They're honing in on that. These guys have done a lot in a small amount of time. It has not even been a year. It has not been a year that the zone has existed, and they've already done more. They've kept Tank Davis much more active than PBC keeps. They keep Tevin Farmer much more active than the PBC keeps, Tank Davis. So let's be honest and unbiased. What the zone is doing is good for fucking boxing. Bias Ego is a clear hater. He's clearly a PBC fanboy. And at this point, you can't take anything he says serious, because I don't even believe that he understands the sport of boxing. Once again, unbiased as always is the Ibfp. Please share, like, and you must absolutely subscribe.